Zoomers, all of you Zoomers that are joining us tonight. Welcome to the world famous Sail Power Steam Museum, South Rockland's finest maritime museum, and the only one, but the finest one. I'm Captain Jim Sharp, and this is my pretty little wife, Meg, beside me. We'll be hosting this thing tonight. Fantastic program we have tonight on the schooner Shenandoah. But of course, we have to start out with a little bit of commercial about our wonderful museum and let you know what the latest things are happening around south end of Rockland. Well, I wanted to tell you one of the most exciting things happening here. Up in the upper left, you see the old entrance to the old building of a museum. I say old building, it's still well used, and of course we're filled up. We have so much memorabilia there. My wife and I started this only a dozen years ago, and we are just chock-a-block full of wonderful things in that museum. So we had to do something drastic. We decided we're going to build ourselves an addition. So we bid over on the upper right-hand side. You see a couple of months ago what the addition looked like when it was under construction. 4,000 square feet. We have 20 antique small boats that we want to put in this new addition to the museum. And now here is a contemporary picture, a picture taken only a few days ago of the completed addition to our museum. A late fall flower in the foreground, and you can see we have various doors where we'll be taking boats in and putting them on display inside the new building. So pleased about it, so proud we are to have it. And we have a wonderful sculpture in the front, just in front of the atrium, the front door, a sculpture made of granite of a schooner running wing and wing away from the building, and done by Joe Osceola. It was given to me for my 88th birthday. Oh my God, 88th birthday. Who said that? 88th birthday, my wife commissioned it for Joe to build, and it is an absolutely magnificent monument for the new museum. I want to tell you a little bit about our skiff program, Sail Kids for Free. This is one of the greatest things that we've dreamed of in the last 10 years. My gosh, it is so satisfying. We take kids from 6 to 14 years old, and you look at the upper left side there, these little tiny kids are rigging their sails, putting their sails together. Over on the right, they're racing each other, and down below you can see the whole fleet of them out there going around. Sail Kids for Free. We give them a week's sail training, a whole week of sail training for free. Doesn't matter whether they can afford it or not, because we don't charge them anything. And here's the program. Day one, they come and they rig their sails and they figure out how these darn boats go together. Day two, they push away from the dock and they go sailing out there on the bay. They just can't think of it. It's one man to a boat. They can't think of anything else. They're either going to sink or swim. Day three, they learn to turn the boat over, turn it back up again. They learned how to make the boat go, how to make it perform. Day four, they're going around the buoys and they're racing. And day five, we have the grand race and everybody is all enthusiastic. This is the day that they forget about their telephones, they forget about their social media, and they concentrate on sailing. We try and get them hooked, try and get them addicted, and we get sailors coming. This is the way we set up the program, Sail Kids for Free. And one man to a boat, he's his own captain. And we tell you, if you send us $100, we will put a man in a boat and for a whole week. And we'll do more than that. We'll take 2 kids and put 2 kids in boats for that same $100. So you give us $100, donate $100 to the skiff program, and we'll put 2 kids on the water for a whole week of sail training. And look at them there, my God, the 2 of them having the greatest time off the wind, blowing away. So this is the way the program works. Donate $100, we'll get 2 kids on the water. Donate $200, you'll get 4 kids on the water. Donate $300, you get 6 kids on the water. Look at this. The $400, you get 8 kids on the water. Look at them all lined up there. 8 kids going like mad and sailing like crazy. And $500 will put 10 kids, the whole class, on the water. Well, if you're the admiral and can afford to donate $1,000 to the skiff program, that's the entire fleet. We have 22 of these Optimus prams, and you'll put 22 kids out on the water and sailing around the buoys and learning all about what sailing, what rewarding sailing is for young people. It's a great, great program. Well, that's the end of the commercial. You can get your beer, come and settle down. We'll see where we go from here. Just before we leave the museum, I just want to mention that Bob Douglass gave us a terrific donation to the museum a number of years ago. He had elbow problems. We solved the elbow problems for him, and he was so gracious and grateful that he gave us a big donation for our atrium. And as a result, we put a model of the Joe Lane up. It's on a roundabout, what they call a cake turner, and it goes round and round right in the atrium, in the Shenandoah atrium, right above Bob Douglass's photograph of the Shenandoah. So, well, let's get started here on the program tonight. I see Bob is with us. Good evening, Captain Bob Douglass.
Howdy.
Do you hear me?
Not too good.
Howdy.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Well, the design, the idea came. The idea was the Joe Lane. The idea turned into the dream turned into the Shenandoah, magnificent vessel. And the brains behind the whole thing was Captain Robert Douglass. Robert Douglass, the energy, the ingenuity, and the brains behind it. Well, it's kind of easy to say just that much, but let's go back to the design. The design of it was an 1850s revenue cutter. 1850s, an ancient vessel, but a wonderful vessel it was, and a swift vessel. Raked mast, Baltimore Clipper style. It looks like it's going fast when you just look at it tied to the dock. But one of the most difficult things that he was going to be faced with was a certification, Coast Guard certification. Wanted to carry passengers in an 1850s revenue cutter. No machinery? How could that be? Well, my God, the Coast Guard, they just raised their eyebrows. What he wanted was a beautiful vessel with square sails. This kind of a vessel, the Coast Guard looked at that and they said, I don't understand a vessel like that. This can't be. How can this possibly be? That's what he wanted. He wanted a vessel without an engine, with square sails on it, a vessel replicating an 1850s revenue cutter. What is wrong with this man? My gosh, the Coast Guard couldn't accept a thing like this. But Bob, an incredible man, a man that I have the deepest respect for. He put his mind to it, and he put his energy to it, and he put all of his force into it. And somehow or other, he bamboozled the Coast Guard into giving him a certification to carry passengers on an 1850s revenue cutter with square sails and no engine. It's absolutely phenomenal, wasn't it, Bob?
It turned out to be, I'd say so.
Are you? You what?
I couldn't hear that.
Well, it's absolutely incredible that you were able to put this together and have the Coast Guard accept it. They wouldn't accept it at first. I know that, you know that. Well, the company was formed, and of course it was called an extreme clipper schooner. Well, the Coast Guard didn't even understand an extreme clipper schooner, but the word extreme, I'm sure, frightened them half to death when they saw the sail plan on that vessel. And of course, not knowing that much about a sailing vessel, there was one that preceded you, one called the Merry Day. And we'll get to that in just a minute. But of course, Bob decided with his energy and his ingenuity, he would go ahead and build the vessel anyway and prove to the Coast Guard that it was an able vessel and it was certainly capable of doing what he intended to do with it. So he went to Harvey Gamage's yard, and Harvey Gamage built the Shenandoah, and they launched it back in for some reason, my oops, sorry about that.
Jim, could you speak?
They launched it in 1964.
Yeah.
And what was that, Bob? Can you speak up a little louder?
Speak up louder.
Go ahead. You asked me the question.
This was the launching day, right? What was the date?
This was 15 February, 64.
February 64. February 64.
February.
And down the way she went with a big crowd of people on her. And like a swan, she entered the water. Flags all flying.
He's not like transmitting at all.
Nice day for February, wasn't it?
I don't hear loud.
And there she was
No, I hear loud.
after she's rigged out.
Yep.
All those wonderful masts with all that rake. She looks like she's doing 5 knots and she's still tied to the dock.
Yep.
So that was quite a day, huh?
That was one of my special days, yeah.
Hello, I'm not sure
Oh,
you
very
can hear
special
me.
day.
I don't know if this is Zoom or
I hear everybody perfectly.
what platform
We
you're
hear you
on.
loud and clear.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, then let me just say, hello, Captain Bob.
Howdy.
This is Rick Paris from 67 and 68.
Okay.
Those 2 summers on Shenandoah. And I'm wearing this hat, this sou'wester, because I had it on board on Shenandoah. And it may very well be we're going to have some heavy rains here tonight. So I thought I would wear it. And you might remember then, that's when I just graduated from college and I stayed in your house, and it was you and me and George Adams.
Yep.
It was early years. So it's really great to see you again.
Indeed, I agree.
Well, we'll continue on here. Of course, Bud Hawkins was a very good friend of both myself and Bob Douglass. We had a lot of communication back and forth. Bud Hawkins put the schooner Mary Day together. And he, of course, was an old schooner man himself. When he built the Mary Day, the Coast Guard looked at it and they said, well, it looks like all the rest of the schooners there in the main fleet. So I guess it was all right. It was the very first one. What year was that? I think, Ron Hawkins, are you there? That was 1962, I think, wasn't it, Bob?
Yep.
You remember?
Yep.
When he built the Mary Day. And
Yep.
he was approved. He got a certificate of inspection as an administrative oversight. I remember they called it. Isn't that correct?
That's what the word they use. So.
Yeah, he didn't have any trouble getting his certificate. So of course, the next schooner coming along, the Shenandoah, they should give him a certificate as well. But now they were getting reserved. They were trying to figure out what they really wanted for regulations. They didn't have any regulations in the book for it, I guess. Well, Bud Hawkins, as an old schooner man he was, incredible. He had the Stephen Tabor and he had the Alice Wentworth. There's the Stephen Tabor up in the upper left there behind the schooner Mary Day, and Bud Hawkins in charge of the deck. And the classic picture of the Mary Day with his 2 sons out on the ends of the bowsprit. And the Mary Day, of course, having her certificate and going along, while we were certainly in touch with him all the time. Still, Bob couldn't get his certificate of operation. The Coast Guard didn't know what they wanted. So he decided he would take the vessel sailing anyway. He wouldn't charge anything. If he didn't charge anything, they couldn't do anything to him as long as he sailed it as a yacht. So he didn't charge anybody any money to go sailing that summer, just to prove the vessel is worth its salt. Isn't that right, Bob? Am I telling this correctly?
That's the idea.
Well, interrupt me and whip me if I tell it wrong.
Okay.
But I gave Bob Douglass all the credit in the world, gobs and gobs of respect for doing a thing like that. I thought that was absolutely fabulous. He sailed the vessel all summer and proved to the Coast Guard that it was a magnificent schooner, absolutely magnificent vessel. But they still didn't give him the certification. So I was down in Florida at the time on my old Malabar, and Bob came down to get a little break in the winter, I guess. Didn't you, Bob?
That was part of the idea,
And
I
he
guess.
joined me on my Malabar, and we would lament talking to each other about the Coast Guard problems and the problems getting a certification for the Shenandoah. And we would lampoon the Coast Guard. We would lambaste the Coast Guard. We would pound on the table down there. I can remember, Bob, you pounding your fist on the table, telling me what the Coast Guard dreamed up next, what the next hoop that you had to jump through in order to work your way towards that certification. And every now and then we would take a break from being aboard Malabar, and we'd go over to the Miami River and we'd take a look down the Miami River at all the different vessels. Back in those days, the Miami River was full of antique boats of all kinds of shapes and description. And we would be criticizing this boat, that, and complimenting this boat and that boat, all the different vessels down southern Florida. We would roam all over the area, over to Mike Burke's fleet of windjammers and see what they were doing, and had a grand time. I gained more and more respect for the knowledge that Bob Douglass had for all of these different vessels, the eye he had for the beauty in them, and the eye he had for the part that didn't look so good. And I absorbed all of that like a sponge. It was great. I had the Stephen Tabor at that time, and I ran her my first season. Of course, she was 80 years old when I had her, and she leaked copiously. And I got up one morning and after sailing her hard the day before, and I had water up over my ankles in the cabin, my suitcase floating around, and my sneakers tacking and jiving between my legs. And I said to myself, I'd like to have another vessel. I'm going to design another vessel. So we sat down and we talked about it, and I decided I was going to build a replica of the schooner America, the schooner yacht America, a historically accurate replica of the America. So I went to the Coast Guard. I got Charlie Whitholtz, a designer, and I commissioned him to help me get through the Coast Guard snarl. They were still snarled up with a Shenandoah, not knowing what to do about the regulations for her. And I came in and I said, I'd like to build an 1851 America's Cup racing boat without an engine. And they said, oh my God, another one? I got absolutely nowhere with the Coast Guard. They couldn't tell me the first thing about what they wanted for regulations for the Yacht America. So I finally gave it up. And Bob Douglass turned to me and he said, Jim, why don't you buy the Adventure? I said, the Adventure, a Gloucester fishing schooner. Yes, she is short of rig. She's kind of beat up. You could re-rig her, you could fix her up, and you'd have a boat with a certification, and you could go to work and sail her, the very first year. I said, my God, Bob, it just makes too much sense. I can't turn it down. So that was the course that I took. I got the old Adventure, re-rigged her, and spent 25 years in the windjammer business there out of Camden. Wonderful, wonderful career, and I thank Bob Douglass because it really was a career that started with his recommendations. I respect Bob's opinions, well, thoroughly, totally.
May I
So
add
that's
something
the
quick?
story.
May
Yes.
The way it really worked was I was down there spending, I think, a week with you on your yawl, and a good friend of yours who just come around home from a world trip had nothing to do, didn't know what to do with himself, and I'd just taken a look at the Adventure. I knew she was for sale in Booth Bay, so we went over and bothered him that evening and tried to talk him into this super business that was just waiting for him, and we struck out. So we went home and said, gee, we're lousy salesmen. So we sharpened our pencils, and because we both run our boats for 1 year, we knew a little bit about what costs were. So we went back there and we struck out again, but we did such a good job. You called the guys up and bought it that night. That's how it really worked. So
I called him up about it that night.
Yeah.
Well, you were convincing. You were convincing if nothing else, huh?
Well, we tried to
I
convince
didn't
your
remember
pal.
that. That's really,
Well, we tried to
yeah,
convince your
that's really
pal to
great.
buy it, but he wouldn't hear of it. But you thought about it, and hearing two pitches, 2 nights in a row. So you caved in and you bought it yourself. It's a good idea.
That was my downfall.
Yeah.
Great fun, great fun. Well, finally you got your certificate. It was an uphill battle, but you finally got it, did you?
It took a year.
Took years, yeah.
Yep.
So there's a vessel under full sail with her squaresails and everything intact. Wonderful, wonderful thing.
Yeah,
Great.
it certainly
And
is.
still-
One last thing I would say, if you can hear me before I sign off, is that one of the great things about Shenandoah, in addition to everything that everyone has said, is that if you've sailed on really modern boats, like swans and things like that, there's something about Shenandoah that I think really came alive. And it's part of it, of course, is what Captain Bob did and the experience of being on it. But I remember in the 2 summers I sailed on Shenandoah, one of the greatest things was when we'd be going down the Sound and there would be a pretty strong southwest wind. And then we would have to go through Quixes and get really hard on the wind. And as you went through Quixes, as we were about to go around to Cutty Hunk, we're now hard on the wind. The boat wouldn't really vibrate, but you could feel it because we were hard on the wind. And of course, we were running around in the rigging, and that was a great part of it. But I think there was something about the fact that it was wooden compared to, a lot of other like ocean-going boats that won the race to Bermuda. When we went through Quixes, I'll never forget that. It wasn't just a vibration, it was kind of a connection. So I'll never forget that.
Yep.
Anyway.
Well, certainly, Bob, you're certainly the real deal. There's no question about that. And what you did was certainly magnificent. Get that vessel certified and going. I would brag about the Shenandoah all the time, and we rarely saw her. Well, we saw her only once in Maine. Here's a picture I picked up. Just I don't know who these guys are. Maybe you can tell me, Bob.
Yes, my 2 kids.
No?
Well, 2 of my 4 kids. Morgan and Morgan on the right and Brooke in the middle.
Oh, is that right? A few years ago? Not too many years ago.
That's more like 15 years ago.
15 years ago.
15 or 20, I'd
I
guess.
thought that was a great picture. Good picture.
Well, they both
I don't
been
have
crew
very
on
many pictures of her underway, but here it looks like you're pushing up. Is that the Mystic River?
Yep.
That the bridge up ahead? The bridge open up ahead?
That's correct.
Is it? Huh?
Yeah, that's the railroad
Pushing
bridge.
with the yellow boat?
That's the highway bridge open for us, yes.
Highway bridge, right.
But this mom,
And she was still painted white at that time.
yeah, she got painted black, I think, in 19, I guess. I can't remember which, but she's been black now for quite a while.
Yeah, she has. I don't know what lighthouse that is, but you're right up close there.
That's going around Brant Point in Nantucket.
Oh. Mhm. With the D flag flying at masthead, Who's that on the yardarm?
I can't tell.
No, no.
Nope.
There you go, trying to figure out which channel to take.
No, there's only one going into Nantucket. You got to stay in the groove.
I see. Who's that with you?
That's Morgan Douglass.
Oh, is that Morgan?
He's
Yeah.
been skipper. He's been
He's got
skipper quite a lot. I say he's been skipper quite a
I
lot.
don't
On
reckon. Yeah.
Yep.
He's got the black whiskers now. I don't recognize him.
Yeah.
Well, then you came to Maine. That was a wonderful time. Bud Hawkins and I radioed back and forth. The Shenandoah is going to come and visit Maine. Oh, we were so excited, I'll tell you. So, of course, it was a beautiful southwesterly blowing that day. And we left early and we beat our way out to try and rendezvous with you. And we saw you sailing up, I guess it was out somewhere off of Matinicus, near Manhegan. I don't know where it was exactly, but we rendezvoused with you out there and I rounded up astern of you, and Mary Day rounded up alongside. And three of us blew together all the way up Penobscot Bay. You remember that? Wonderful day. And it must have been a flood tide because the wind kept making. What?
Yeah, that was a perfect chance. Yeah, it was blowing hard too.
Yeah, it was blowing hard. By the time we got up in the bay, it was blowing real hard. A real hatful of wind, I remember. And we were going along there, booms down as far as they could go. Of course, everybody drawing it just as much as they could possibly do. And I guess we must have been on a port tack because we were headed for Gilkey Harbor. And then along the way, Bud Hawkins got on the radio and said, "Oh, let's go to Pulpit Harbor instead." And oh my God, we'd have to jibe to go to Pulpit Harbor. I said, I didn't want to go to Pulpit Harbor. My blowing as hard as it was then, it's my 60-foot main boom. I didn't want to jibe that. Well, we didn't know what to do. And standing right next to me was Leo Hines. Leo Hines was the fisherman that had the vessel for 20 years back in the 1934 to 53 and set all records in the fishing industry back in those days in the old Adventure. And I said, my God, I don't want to jibe. He said, well, Jim, you're going to lose the race if you don't jibe over. It takes you so long to tack. I said, well, I know that. All right. Well, I guess we're going to have to jibe then. So we got a gang on the main sheet there. We must have had 20 people on that main sheet. We sheeted her in all the way and took a quick turn around the cleat and jibed her over. Of course, when we jibed, the leech of it went into an hourglass, and that gaff up aloft there snapped over with a hell into Larrapy speed and fetched up against the lee rigging there and crack, broke right in half. Oh my God. So we didn't rest on our laurels and massage our difficulty. We immediately took the mainsail down, took the gaff off, and we hoisted the throat up, had a jib-headed mainsail. We lashed the peak of it down. And then they decided anyway they were going to Gilkey Harbor after all that. Oh my God. So we sailed up into Gilkey Harbor, and the three of us, we anchored there. And I called Cabby Quinn, or Erwin Quinn, that worked for me at that time. I said, go up in the loft there over the shop and get that 1.5-inch oak we had, strip it up and send it out on the morning ferry. And he did. And we got it on the morning ferry. And while everybody else had breakfast, we fished that gaff and put a line all the way around it and just seized it all up real tight, poured buckets of water in it to make the line shrink around it. And we set the mainsail again. And then we beat up around Turtle Head and we all ended up in Pulpit Harbor just at dark the next day. And it was one of the most exciting 2 days we had aboard the vessels, both Buds, and I just enjoyed that so much, your visit to Maine. What did you think of it?
It was a special day, but I cheated a little bit. I had Ronnie Hawkins come along as being my on the scene pilot.
Yeah.
which made it a
Where-
good deal. And I talked to I guess Bud's one evening. We had planned this for quite a while, and we had a chance. The first shot of the first day leaving Vineyard Haven, we got over to Provincetown, and then I had the best sail I've ever had on the boat because it came off the next afternoon. We finally got underway about noontime on Tuesday, very light variable, and let go, and finally came up off northwest, and we were right off of Scituate, and we held a fair breeze. That's about 85 or 90 miles, and down to Seguin. And we had the wind right on the beam, crystal clear night, perfect visibility, maybe
God.
15, 18 knots of wind, and the old compass on the big northeast triangle. I never had a sail better than that. And then, of course, that afternoon, you guys had planned on staying further to the west, and you knew I was coming along, and we met you off of Metnick, as I remember, and sailed. We called ourselves the offshore fleet, the two more offshore boats of the main fleet, definitely. And all three of us stayed together all day long, sailing down ahead. Well, we had to wear ship. We had to wear ship to stay on course, getting down to Gilkey's Harbor. That was a wonderful day.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah, it was fantastic. God given that day, honestly.
That's 19. You realize that's
Fantastic.
19.
Well,
That's
Ron,
1976.
was that
19
76? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 76. Ronnie Hawkins supposed to be on. I don't know if he's on or not. I tried to get him before. Ronnie, are you there? Well, I don't hear from him, so I guess he didn't make
Ron,
it.
Jim, he is
Well,
on. Ron,
anyway.
you're on mute. Ron, can you unmute? I can see you there.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, welcome, Ronnie.
There he is.
Captain
I'm on myself.
Hawkins, tell us about that trip.
You guys have pretty much covered it. It was very exciting to have all three vessels sailing together. Once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, it sure was. Sure was. Well, it must have been great fun. Great fun for you to spend a week on the Shenandoah.
It was very exciting. Yes. Yep. And I thank Captain Douglass from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to be part of it. Captain Douglass. Yeah.
That was a good time, all right. That was a good time. This picture came in, it was called the Alabama and the Shenandoah, but the Alabama sure has a different dress. This looks like the namesake of the builder.
Well,
Is that right, Bob?
That's me and Joe Davis. That's Joe Davis's Bill of Rights.
Oh, that's Joe.
We're coming out of New Bedford.
That's the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. The Harvey Gamage and the Bill of Rights are so much the same. I can't tell the difference. Great.
Yeah.
That poor old vessel, she's no longer in service. She's a restaurant now, isn't she?
No,
Kind of sad.
the Gamage is owned in Rockland now, and she's still sailing. The same stuff she's been doing back to those, like since Whitcomb had her, and the Bill of Rights is on the West Coast, owned by a crowd in Oxnard, and I think they've got her licensed and operational, but I'm not sure of the details. So she's still operational, I think.
I've sailed on the Bill of Rights. I was crew on the Bill of Rights. The owner of the Oxnard, they abandoned the project, so she's in San Diego now.
Okay.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. Who's that, Bob?
Say again.
Who is that?
Sorry, my name is Lee. I was just interested in the Shenandoah. I've been a crew of the Bill of Rights for a while, so I'm just kind of curious as to
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, no, I was speaking of the picture. You're flirting with this lady on the quarterdeck there, Bob.
yeah, she's an old friend of mine. She's been a great supporter of the Shenandoah operation, and now this what we call the steel tops of schooner program that's in the works. She's a great she's as good a sailboat nut as they get.
Yay.
Stephanie, her
All
name is Stephanie Speakman.
Oh, I see. And then apparently you decided to paint her black. What brought on that decision?
Well, I've always thought it made her look more rakish and more piratical, I guess, maybe. But it turns out it's
Yes.
easier on keeping the topside planking on because it keeps the wood drier. And as soon as I painted her black, the topside rot and plank replacement dropped way off. So I think that's
Really?
well, it's just like
I can't imagine it.
well, if you've got a car in the parking lot, one's white, you can put your hand on it. On a good hot day, can't put your hand on the black one. And since that's a wooden
No,
hull underneath,
that's right.
you tend to dry out the oak much more than it would be if it were white. And the lower the moisture content, and red oak's full of water, the rot got under control. I've had a lot of planking troubles right there at the beginning.
Well, she must leak pretty hard when you get heel her over very far.
No, she was
That
all
all
very.
dried out.
She was so tight. I never used to pump her over the winter, and she'd spend the winter on the mooring in the head of Vineyard Haven. She's on that mooring right there in that picture,
Yeah.
and she's very tightest boat I've ever been mixed up with.
Mm-hmm. Well, I had a tugboat painted black, wooden tugboat one time painted black, and when I get out and when she gets a rolling, why the water would squirt right into the seams on the top sides. She was so dried out.
Maybe it's time for
You
a
had the
recalking.
masts. Yeah.
Say again?
You had the mast out there for inspection.
Well, no, we replaced this time. We had both masts out. We replaced the foremast with a laminated.
Oh, is that right?
A brand new laminated. It was the first time I got a laminated piece of wood on the boat. This was made in the Canadian company near Toronto. They're pretty good sized masts. They're 70 feet long and 20 inches at the partners and 16 inches at the hounds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where did the mast come from?
They were
West
all West
Coast?
Coast. Everything was West
Yeah.
Coast fur to begin with. But now we priced that out. It would have been impossible to get one right away, first of all. And they would have cost over $10,000 a piece, not even being touched. So we went with this outfit. This outfit built the mast for the new Blue Nose in Lunenburg. So they had a good track record.
Mm-hmm. Did you get your mast from Pigeon Spar Company originally?
Yep, Pigeon built all the spars the first time.
Yeah. I believe my mainmast cost about $3,500.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering right. Pigeon got it for me.
Yeah.
Well, so you put a red stripe around to make her look even more ominous.
Well, we didn't get the
Certainly
red
gives
stripe
her a
on it.
rakish.
The red stripe
No.
didn't get on her this summer, but it makes it look. Yeah, that's one got the red stripe. Yeah, it looked pretty good.
Yeah, looks great.
And that's her wintertime year-round mooring that she's swinging on this picture.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she didn't have any sails on her there.
Yeah.
But here you are underway again.
That's right. And that's the
And
Bahama
both
dinghy.
boats,
That's the Bahama dinghy on our port quarter.
Was
We
it-
carry sort of like the captain's gig. That's
Really?
that's the head of Vineyard Haven Harbor, looks like, most of the time.
that's not the Bahama dinghy you got from me,
No, no,
is it? No?
no, this one,
That
this
was
one I
later.
bought,
You got that from me.
yeah, that's a couple of years ago. This one
It's
I
what?
bought in, that's a couple of years ago. I got that one from you, but this one I bought in Fort Lauderdale, 1956.
Oh, is that right? Uh-huh.
The,
Ah,
the-
great. Whoops.
the William Marbury boat.
Hmm. So here's the Alabama and the Shenandoah on their winter moorings.
They're on their winter moorings, their year-round moorings, yes.
Yeah. And there she is with everything set.
Maybe you heard the new management, and the first thing they've done is bought a brand new suit of sails. And this is what I was sailing on up until 2 years ago. And everything's
Yeah.
patched. We were making
Yes.
them go. I think we had two complete different miters on the headsails, and wound up with new heads. And I've done that to 2 sails now. I've been through 4 mainsails, all told. This was the 3rd one. This was not
Yeah.
the last one. Yeah. And now we're no longer canvas. We were the only boat in Vineyard Haven Harbor had a canvas sail. So, and now we got they call it the Atlantis. The stuff that Nat Wilson and North Sails put together.
Oceanus.
That's right. And they seem
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
they seem to be good sails. The sail that's on Alabama now is twice as old as Shenandoah sail in equal shape,
Huh.
which is unusual. So
Interesting. Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, I don't know when these pictures were taken, but there are hammocks up in the rigging there. Is that where you take your afternoon?
This is a recent picture, 3-4 years ago.
Is that a recent picture?
Yeah.
Is it? Pretty neat. That where the crew take their afternoon nap, huh?
I don't see a net on that one. A hammock, you see a hammock somewhere? I can't see one.
Yeah, the two I guess there's a little delay in when I click these pictures. There are 2 hammocks hanging up on the forward rigging there, it looks like.
Possible.
Well, maybe it's the main rigging.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult to see. Well, anyway, there's the oarboat hanging up on the stern. I keep thinking of the fish boat that ran into you. They cut your oarboat in half. That was
Did worse than that.
that was
better-
an unwelcome thing. What time of the year that happened?
That happened the middle of August. 3 years.
Middle of August.
4 years. Yeah, 90. Maybe about 3 years ago. Of course, you should tell everybody now I own your yawl boat, built by the same builder
Yeah.
in Camden, and it's all we put it all
Right.
through. We put it through a rigger that didn't need too much, and she's my 100% spare. I always wanted one. If anything happened to the operational yawl boat,
Yeah.
to put you in
Yeah.
tough shape. And so now I've got a push button spare sitting in my garage. This one, how about this? The yawl boat, not this yawl boat was smashed to bits, but I bought, I'd had Elmer Collimer build one after he built you one. And I put that in my garage and it stayed there for 40 years until I finally got around to have it powered. And it was powered that spring of the year that I got wrecked. And then I had the chance to get yours, and yours had been in storage in your garage for 25 years. And they're now both they're now operating under the same flag. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Pretty good. Well, if you have a spare, you will never need it. That's the nice part about it.
That's one of my.
Well, with all those patch sales.
One of my sons said,
Well,
"Dad, you never needed a spare yawl boat yet. What do you need this one for?" See, that's what I look like. That's what I looked like the last year of operation. Things were looking a little shady there. But of course, there's used to it's not throwaway sales. They'd repair them until you couldn't repair them.
That's right. That's right.
We were doing that here.
So what year was this?
That's got to have been like last year of operation, I'm sure. 90.
Yeah.
Was that 98? What were we talking about? 98.
You mean 2019?
Yeah, that's better. No, 2018. 19 we. No, 19 was my last year. You're right, and 20 was the one we laid up.
Is that right?
No, it was the one before.
Great.
Straighten me out, Ronnie. I can't keep it straight anymore. 18. I think 18 was my last season.
Straighten them out.
Yeah.
No, when was the COVID summer? Well, 19 was the summer we didn't sail. And this summer we didn't sail too. That's the summer of 20.
2020 was the summer Shenandoah didn't sail.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
2020 shouldn't sail. Yeah. Well, this is a picture of a different Shenandoah, obviously. But I thought it was a nice wave to transition into the next endeavor here.
Who's this boat? Who is this boat?
Some yacht. I don't know who's it. It's some yacht. I don't know who owned it, but it was just a nice wave.
Well,
I thought I'd leave that section, and then we come up to the fall of 2007.
Yep.
When the vessel went to Booth Bay Harbor for retopping.
Yep.
First major overhaul, 75% of the planking was replaced and refastened from the waterline up.
Well, the top 8 planks were replaced. The boat was completely refastened. Yeah.
And she was relaunched in 2008 with much fanfare.
Yeah, that's the McPherson Pine Tree Band from Lawrence, Massachusetts. They came up for the show. And it was great.
Is that right?
No, this was this was not the launching. This was the relaunch from the Booth Bay Yard.
From the Booth Bay Yard, yes.
In 08. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. That's what I said there. Yeah. Now, is that your tugboat?
Where we? No, that's Ralph Packer's tugboat.
Oh.
Who's on the left? Where's that picture? Where's that picture? That must be that's got to be Morgan and somewhat rigged down, yeah?
That was Shenandoah leaving Mystic last spring.
Okay.
Oh.
That makes sense. Yep.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, there's a square rigger in the background. I'll be darned.
Yeah, that's the Morgan.
I didn't notice that before, yeah. Well, here comes the story, the terrible, terrible tragedy of going to Booth Bay Harbor. And I guess you can all read that.
Yeah, the Booth Bay Harbor Shipyard, Terry McClinch, about did me in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, what a tragedy.
Yeah.
What a tragedy. I couldn't believe it. Well, if any of you are unable to read that, why, it will be on YouTube, and you'll have plenty of time to go through it. I thought it was a fascinating, tragic, sad story, but certainly a lesson learned, huh?
It was hard to tell because I just seen
And-
the job they'd done on the Roseway, which was a creditable job. And I had a guy who had been here around Vineyard Haven for a couple of years, and he was the foreman on the job. David Stimson, and
Oh,
he
really?
was a top-notch guy. And then he took him off the job and sent him to Newport to build a 6-meter, if you could believe that. Things went downhill pretty fast after that.
Oh my goodness. Well, that was a tragedy. So then you had to take her over to Fairhaven and go on the railway there.
Yeah, after that summer,
Is this
bad leaks, we hauled there in the fall and saved the problem, and then took on the job of a major rebuild of the rebuild, which was either you sawed the boat up right there or you fixed it. There wasn't any other option. You couldn't use it the way it was. I won't go into the dollar sign part of it, but it was a ruinous affair.
Yes.
It cost almost as much to rebuild it at Fairhaven as it did to the rebuilding job in Booth Bay the year before.
So you had to rebuild her twice.
Yeah, and then we did the stern again by my friend Ian Ridgway. Now she's really in good shape.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, there they are, steam and plank.
They worked all through the winter. This railway has been disbanded. He doesn't use it now. And they worked right around the clock, right around the calendar, I should say. We hauled out there over in October and didn't leave the yard until June. And they did a major job of reflashing, and we got in a lot of planks that had been left that needed to come out, as you see them doing the job now. This guy by the name of Tony Masita, I think the fellow on the left, he's their top dog. He's actually sort of his own contractor. He works out of Kelly's Yard, or what's called Fairhaven Shipyard now. And if it wasn't for him, the boat wouldn't have been in commission. The last time I hauled out there 2 years ago was the 50th time I hauled on their railway. Same railway. That doesn't happen very often. I tried to get a special treatment from my friend who was one of the owners, and he didn't think it was possible. But I thought I must have put over $1 million in the yard over 50 years, 55 years, 50 years of hauling.
Wow, you should own the yard.
Yeah.
Well, there's the Coast Guard looking into things.
I don't know if that's got to have been that same time, but I forgot we took that many planks off. This is the starboard bow.
Yeah.
I knew we got into a place on the port bow like that, but I didn't remember the starboard bow looked like that. Anyway, it's got a lot of new planking on her now, that's for sure. Well, boats don't last forever, you know. Vessels got to be maintained,
That's
and
right.
that means a lot of rebuilding sooner or later.
Yeah.
Most
That's
boats
right.
didn't stay on the job for 50, 55 years, no matter what the service was. Well, it's always hard to believe that the Morgan fished actively for 80 years. That's the most remarkable fact, I think, in the marine world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, life goes on, and you had to continue on with the Alabama after this. Shenandoah and Alabama both making afternoon cruises.
Doing the same thing. Although you know that Shenandoah's under new ownership now.
Yeah. And well, then the Alabama came along in 1995.
When did she come on the scene? She was ready for her first season in 1998.
88.
Yeah, is that Alabama?
So, yeah.
That's a bad picture. We don't like that picture on the port side there.
I don't know where that came from, but it was all part of the one picture I picked up on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, here's a better picture. With the old black dog flag flying up there.
Yep. These I should say are all Nat Wilson sails on this boat.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And all my
She's
work
pretty boat, had pretty stern.
She's a Walter McGinnis design. And she was designed and built for the Mobile Bar Pilot Association in 1926.
Right.
Same year as the Adventure was built.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Got a much prettier stern than the Adventure.
Well, the funny part, this stern is unusual in that she has literally no overhang. The red water line just about touches that corner of the transom, and the reason for that, I'm sure, is that this boat replaced a McInnes design schooner that was built in Essex in 1911 for the Mobile Bar Pilots, but their operation was to anchor her just out of the river south of the channel where the channel enters the Gulf, and of course the river's running to the south all the time, and so she'll be tide rowed. Yeah. And then of course the wind is always blowing southwest there, so she was always with little wavelets and seas would be breaking under the stern, so it drove them crazy. And they said next boat we build, and this boat was built in 26 to replace the one built in 1911, and it looks as if he took the plans and took a eraser and took off the stern, because she would look better if she had a little more overhang. But I've always figured she has a handsome bow that makes up for any other slight defects with her fence, a little big on the big side.
Well, it's getting kind of dusty in the harbor there.
And I can't see. No, we're on our mooring in that picture thing. Ooh, yeah, that's not a good picture.
That's not a good picture.
No, that's the.
Want to go back to the other one?
That's the wrong way to get into Mystic.
I see. Well, we all do it. If you don't, you don't go anywhere.
If you haven't been ashore, you haven't been sailing.
There, but for the grace of God, go I. Yeah. And guess we're drawn to a close there. Oh no, that's right. We got another interesting one. What is this Creative Living Award?
Oh, a nice lady on the island decided she would start an organization that recognized people that her board would decided have made it an addition to the scene, the lifestyle, etc. of the vineyard. Yep. They decided I fit the mold, I guess.
Pretty neat. Well, now it's getting a little dusty again here, and here comes the ferry. There's going to be some complaints here, I guess, huh?
Well, I used to have a lot of complaints with the ferries. Well, no, that's a good picture. Now we're on our mooring in that picture, and if that wind's obviously in the north, it gets pretty heavily there. If it's in the north, goes right the straight slot in between the breakwater and the east shop Lagoon Pond breakwater. You can get a little rough in the head of the harbor, but we got to have good gear down. And I've got what would amount to good gear. I've got a 5-ton mushroom, 90 feet of 2-inch stud link, and 45 feet of 1.5-inch stud link. That's over 100. That's over well over 100 feet of chain. So the catenary effect on that produces exactly what you want, a nice spring. We stayed out of trouble for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, there's a little argument with the powers that be there. Yeah.
Well,
okay, well, we'll switch gears here. We'll switch gears here, and the new operation takes over. So maybe we can call on Ian here to come and fill us in a little bit on the program. This looks like the powers that be right here.
I think Casey Bloom can do just as well as Ian right now if she wants to step in. This is Harry Dickerson talking.
Hi there. Thanks, Harry. Hi, everybody. Yes, so Ian and I started an organization, nonprofit organization here on Martha's Vineyard in 2017. And we have the educational mission of serving youth on Martha's Vineyard by getting them out to sea and having them experience amazing, life-changing voyages. And we never anticipated that we would be taking on Shenandoah. That wasn't really something we set out to do when we started this organization in 2017. But when COVID hit last year in 2020, we began talking to Captain Bob and the Douglass family about taking on ownership of Shenandoah, and they graciously decided to donate the vessel to our organization. So we've been kind of hard at work for the last year now, really planning for how we would get the boat back underway. She had major work done last fall and over the winter in the Mystic Seaport, and Ian can speak a little more to the work that was done. And then this past summer in 2020, we had 15 weeks of programming aboard Shenandoah. Ian took over the helm as captain, and we continued our partnership with Martha's Vineyard schools, and we take all the island 5th graders and sometimes 6th graders out sailing for week-long trips. And we also have open enrollment youth voyages for kids ages 9 to 16, which is a program that the Douglasses started on board Shenandoah as well. And it was really an incredible season. We had wait lists for a lot of our programs, and I think kids were really excited and eager to get back to doing things in person and together. And there's definitely a sense of community that exists on board Shenandoah that makes it really a magical place. And coming out of this year of COVID, it was really challenging, but I think youth in particular really struggled. And it was really rewarding and incredible to see how excited they were to be back on board the boat and unplugged and learning how to sail. So it was really an incredible summer on Shenandoah. And what am I missing, Ian?
I think you summed it up great.
Ian, maybe you can tell a little bit about the rebuilding process here in Mystic.
Sure.
Her tail feathers all renewed.
Yep. So in the spring of 2019, some rot was identified in that piece of wood that you can see in the picture, which is we refer to as the stern circle. It's what the hood ends of the hull planking the deck planking land on. It's a massive timber, both depth, width, all around. And there was some rot discovered in that. And, knowing that the only way to really dig into that timber to find out how far the rot spread was to remove the ends of several planks. Captain Douglass had the foresight that it was going to be a major job, and an appeal was made to the Coast Guard to put it off a little longer. It wasn't, the stern was not in structurally in critical shape, but there was significant rot back there. It was still supporting a 3,000-pound yawl boat, so obviously it wasn't in critical shape, but rot does spread. And what we found after when we finally removed the deck planking to put that stern piece back in, was that several of the deck planks were missing fastenings. And that's a result of that same horror show that happened in Booth Bay in 2008. And so it's no surprise that water was getting in there with fastenings missing on the ends of the deck planks, and nothing had been bedded or painted. So it was a really good environment for rot to spread, and it turned out to be a big job. We found several of the frames that were revealed when the planking was taken off the stern also had rot in them, and so we did we replaced several futtocks on many frames. We did some Dutchmans in some of the frames. I can't tell you offhand exactly how many frames were addressed, but probably in the neighborhood of 20. I'd say around 20, and we had to remove 40 strakes, more planks than that, to do all this work. So we got the boat in Mystic in November, and we're there right up until June 30th, which was a month later than we wanted to be out of there. And it was a push. We had by the last month, most days there was 12 to 15 people working on the boat, including our own crew who showed up May 1st for the season. And I'll tell you, it was a really good feeling. You showed a picture earlier of Shenandoah heading out of Mystic on June 30th with the tug Thuban, provided by Ralph Packer, who was kind enough to donate his tugboat for the trip. And that was a good day to be heading back home to Vineyard Haven. But it was an incredible journey. We had, aside from all the amazing amount of work that went into the boat, we had support from so many different people in the vineyard community, both in businesses, individuals, and foundations. Of course, it all started with the Douglass family, who was kind enough to pass Shenandoah on to us and entrust us with one of their most important assets. And then, to donate the use of all their facilities in our first year, and really give us a chance to try and get this program going again. And on top of that, several businesses on the harbor supported us. I mentioned the use of the tugboat, Martha's Vineyard Shipyard, several foundations on the island, including MV Youth, who gave us a $100,000 grant for Shenandoah. The shipyard bill ended up being a little over $300,000, and we spent about $70,000 on the new sails. We replaced all of them except the main gaff topsail. So she's gotten a new lease on life, and we couldn't be more honored to preserve and attempt to even grow what Bob and his family started. And Shenandoah is such a special vessel to me. I spent almost 25 summers on board under Bob's tutelage. And yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Ian, I know you've been watching the chat, but you've been talking. Somebody's asking if there are volunteer crew opportunities.
There are. We hire 2 volunteer staff each summer. Those positions filled up pretty quick last summer, but there may be openings again in the year to come. As far as like shorter term commitments, we haven't created any positions for that yet, but it's a possibility. And if anyone is interested in getting involved in Shenandoah, they can definitely reach out to us. Our email's on our website, and we'll can provide that. I can write it also in the chat. Yeah, we'd love to have anyone who wants to be on board Shenandoah or involved with Shenandoah. We don't turn anybody away.
We did also, this summer, we did a finale cruise at the end of the season, which was the last week of September. And there's some photos that have been popping up from the slideshow from the finale cruise. But we had some alumni that sailed with us on the finale cruise and people that have spent time on Shenandoah in the past. We had one woman who sailed on the boat in the 70s. She did a week-long trip and she came back with her husband, and they had a great time. So we're trying to get as many people who love the boat, but back on board, spending time out there. And there's lots of opportunities to voyage with us in 2022. So don't be shy. Reach out to us.
That'd be great. Well, now we've had a little tour around on deck, but there's something else in the wind here, and it should be on the screen now. Ian, can you tell me a little bit about this?
Well, I'll get it started, and maybe Captain Douglas would like to add to it. But I believe about 15 years ago, Bob first shared with me his plans for a vessel that he designed as a successor to Shenandoah. And it's a steel topsail schooner, similar to Shenandoah, but in terms of the shape of the hull, something actually kind of closer to Irving Johnson's Yankee, the steel brigantine that he sailed around the world with several times. And I have him to blame for getting me so excited about this new ship. It can do a lot of things that Shenandoah can't do because Shenandoah is, engineless and limited to coastwise sailing, at least with passengers. And being built out of steel is a practical medium for the future. It offers a lot more room down below. It'll still be a traditional vessel in every way. It'll still have the charm and character of a ship like Shenandoah, but we'd be able to sail with this boat year round, which will be really helpful for us to create a net positive business model because we'll have, students doing semester long voyages during this fall and spring term. And we want to take young adults, college age, out for semester voyages on this ship and sail down to the tropics and do some globe trotting and still be able to come back to Vineyard Haven to continue all the wonderful summer programming that the Douglas family started with Shenandoah and that we're doing now. But it's a special boat, and Captain Douglas, if you'd like to talk more about her, no one better than you. It's his design and his idea.
All right, I'll try to put it in a condensed form because it's been in my back pocket, as it were, for 50 years. This replacement, she was planned as a replacement for Shenandoah because I knew Shenandoah wasn't going to hang around forever. But it turns out that trying to sell a 100-foot sailing vessel with no engine is impossible. Nobody was interested. The first question was, could you put an engine in it? Well, you could, but you'd have to tear the boat all apart to do so. But anyway, this vessel is a definite she's definitely an extension of Shenandoah's plan. She's rigged very similarly. She's a little bit bigger. She's quite a lot more displacement. Shenandoah's 170 tons, and this boat is over 200, about 240, if I remember right. And she has an entirely different hull form. Shenandoah was used the lines of a revenue cutter, and that was like a police boat to catch people that were breaking laws and stuff. And she was really a very light displacement boat, and displacing only 170 tons. And this vessel is much more, I say, in the ballpark of tonnage for vessels these dimensions. But Shenandoah, 3 summers ago, my mate had a GPS on board, and Shenandoah will do 14 knots, which is pretty good speed for a 101 foot length waterline boat. But anyway, at one point in time, it looked like this expensive this boat would be really too much, and so I looked at the chance of building a copy of Yankee. But I talked to Art Kimberly, who'd been skipper on it several times, and he told me he'd been sailing with me and Gloria quite a few times on Shenandoah. He said, "You don't do it." He says, "You wouldn't be happy. She's nowhere near the sailboat that Shenandoah is. So you want to have a vessel that's going to be a good sailboat, but being able to do more stuff, having power is a plus, and it can be a negative too, because you wind up planning the vessel's behavior just like you would a bus tour. You try not to do that. And anyway, this vessel, the new vessel, is going to have good diesel power. We're talking now whether it should be single screw or double. I think we're going to go double. The redundancy of a complete backup for the power system, I think you can't beat. Plus, it makes the boat very, very maneuverable, much more so than a single screw boat. This way would almost have to have a bow thruster. And her basic difference is more in her layout on deck. Shenandoah and this boat have about the same number of berths, but this boat is going to be is going to have very fine deck structure. She looked like a small version of a main downeaster. They all had forecastles that most likely had power in one end maybe, but would have the forecastle on deck in the galley for the crew and I say hoisting gear. But this boat is going to have a forecastle house. That's not a forecastle. It would be like a forecastle house, but it's a galley house. The galley's in it. The main thoroughfare across the house sidewise, heads on the back side of it, and on the back of that it's going to be an on-deck workshop, which would be ideal. Right in the middle of the boat, have a bench the full length of the house, about 8 feet wide. You could have all your tools and paint and saws, everything. You wouldn't have to go hide and find it somewhere and lug it up on deck and have trouble putting it away. And she's going to have a wheelhouse. And almost all your vessels built in the tail end of your big 6 masters and your downeasters, all Cape Horn vessels, they all had wheelhouses. But you can have a wheelhouse only really. Well, no, that's not true. The wheelhouse is a function of being able to stay warm and dry. Having a deck house requires the wheelhouse to be on you got to have a raised quarterdeck, or you wouldn't have visibility out over the galley house. So this is going to have a proper looking wheelhouse. All the windows will be pocket windows that all drop down into the sides. The sliding doors in the sides of it, all 6 doors on deck houses on the boat will be what we're called pocket, P-O-C-K-E-T. They slide into the side of the house. Don't have hinges. Don't swing around and get in the way. So her deck arrangement is going to be very comfortable, but doesn't make the boat quite as nice in the fact that if you stand at the wheel on Shenandoah, she has no deck houses that stick much above the rail except for two what we call dog houses, maybe 2 feet, but they're back by the mainmast. You can see all around the boat from the wheel, plus down close to the bow, seeing who you're going to start running over. This boat we'll have to spend a little more time keeping clear and walking around and looking at it. But she'll have a very different feel in that people will be able to stay on deck sometime. So she'll have what is called a roundhouse, and these were structures that were the sort of the access entranceway to the quarterdeck area on these big vessels, and they were mounted right at the break in the deck, and they would have the doors on each side. And the galley house will have a door on each side, the roundhouse will have a door on each side, and the wheelhouse will have a door on each side. That means you can be on the wind and you can have doors open. You can get in and out of the boat, even if the wind's on the quarter. Or aft, you'll have an access to the vessel that won't be a problem of the rain driving down it, and that is not the case in Shenandoah, of course. Her rig is going to be very similar. People talk about, gee, why don't you go to a brigantine? The topsail schooner, the two sails on this boat that are square rig almost duplicate the complexion of the rig of the rest of the boat. And they produce those two sails are about 1,000 square feet of sail, and make the boat a good sailboat. And people don't realize, I haven't been offshore much, only one trip to Tahiti on the Bounty. But one thing you've got to worry about offshore, and 4.5 vessels couldn't satisfy it. If you were reefed down somewhat in bad conditions, you didn't have much sail area up high. And when you got big seas, the vessels run off into a trough and run out of wind. And when you come back up again, then the wind, all the rig takes a great crash as it gets full of air. But if you've got the square sails, and that's why square sails were so attractive, you could keep quite a lot of sail aloft, even in bad conditions. You would just reduce it all. But this topsail and gansail would be well above the effects of a heavy sea, and it's a lot more fun to sail, a lot more strings to pull on, and still the boat is being built for carrying a bunch of kids on board. And the more stations, the more things to do, the more strings to pull on, as I put it, all make that a vital part of the scene. And being unpowered, we have no power winches on board. Everybody, we refer to it as Norwegian seam, and that means you got to line up half the crowd on one halyard, the peak halyard on one side, and the throat halyard on the other. So the boat will look similar in the distance, but one's going to be steel. One's going to have the new boat won't have a foresail. It'll have a big main staysail, which you think might be a better thing for more offshore conditions. She was going to have smaller headsails. She's going to have 4 headsails instead of 3, because that outer jib, both jibs on this boat are about 700 feet apiece, and that's really too much to take care of. Take all my crew in any kind of a breeze, and that's like 5 or 6 guys on the sheet. And the sails are almost too big, so they would be split up a bit. We'd have one more, and the sails would be a little under 500 feet apiece, which would be easier to handle. I think we're maybe talking about going taller mast. The hoists on these two sails are only 36 feet, and it's interesting to compare that to the Pride of Baltimore. Her hoist on her fore and main are 50 feet. And we're still talking to the Coast Guard as to what kind of a stability picture we're going to wind up with. So the major modification may be in the looks of the boat,
Bob,
somewhat taller rig.
Bob, you're going to have to write a book.
You're
going to have to write a book, Bob.
I talk about it. I might.
That's great.
But anyway, the thing
It's
that should be gotten in your fine show here, Jim, is that this young fellow in the picture here, and it says his name is Ian Ridgway. Shenandoah wouldn't be running today if it wasn't for him. If he wasn't crazy enough and had the backing enough that he's been putting together for building this proposed steel vessel, Shenandoah would be sitting on the mooring with no buyers, no sales, and no operation. That'd be the end of the line. So she's now back in great shape, and he plans on running her at least maybe with the steel schooner. We haven't got that far yet, but he thinks also that this vessel's association with himself will tend to put his fundraising drive in the higher gear, because this is not some nut kid who came off the road. Here's a guy who's been handling and rebuilding and the sailing of a 108 foot square topsail schooner. So she may be the reason that the new steel schooner gets built with the ownership that she wound up getting involved with. Thank you,
Ian. Thank goodness there are a few of these younger fellas coming along that pick up on it and keep the Shenandoah going and keep a lot of these old wooden boats going. I'm so pleased to have been a member of the triad of the people trying to carry on with this. The Bob Douglass and the Buds Hawkins and me, I thought it was just great. And I hope that the Shenandoah will go on for many, many years. Absolutely wonderful to pick your brain a little bit, Bob. We all are certainly pleased and much better off as a result of it. And your 55 years be saluted by all of us. And Bob Douglass will go down in history, one of the greatest schooner men around, I'm sure of it. I certainly have the deepest respect for you and your ideas and your drive, and you're still going. You'll be on for a long time yet. Fair winds, my friend.
Thank you.
Going to
Thank you.
conclude the program. Conclude the program that for now, and it'll all be on YouTube, and everybody will be able to watch it. Here are the coming attractions for Captain's Quarters. There's a list of all of the vessels that we've done interviews on. And the next one coming up on November 9th is the schooner Ladona, and Captain J.R. Brow and Noah Barnes on that one. So we have a few more down into December. Then we're going to take a break for January, and maybe we'll think up some really new things to do in February and March. So stay tuned to the Sail Power Steam Museum. Wonderful program tonight. Thank everybody for coming. Any more questions? Jump in and speak up.
Jim, if I could just add,
to the
if I can just add before this concludes, you know, this is a really exciting time. This new chapter unfolding with Shenandoah. It's a partnership between the Douglass family and Fuel, and Bob's vision is really at the core of all of this. It's his ideas and his dream that we're hoping to steward and continue into the future. And you know, the only way we can make this all work, of course, is with generous support from, you know, our constituents and our community. So we need advocates, we need donors, we need everyone to be on board with this vision for it to work, and we think we can definitely pull it off. And we welcome anyone with any ideas for ways to support Fuel to get in touch with us. Our email is in the chat, and I can share it with anyone who's interested as well. But that's all I wanted to add, and thank you so much for having us and giving us this opportunity.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you all for coming. Thank everybody for coming, and look forward to more of the same down the road. If you want a good book to read, why get in touch with the Sail Power Steam Museum, get a copy of Reckless Abandon, donate to our skiff program, and put a couple of kids out on the water, and you've got a free book. My God, what a deal. What a deal. That's 40 years of voyaging, my memoirs, and some of it's even true. Any questions?
Thank
No
you for your
questions.
efforts. Thank you for your efforts, Jim. This is a good enterprise you're into.
Oh, Bob, it's wonderful talking to you. Wonderful to spend some time with you. It's been a long time. So, very best to you.
You
You and
too.
I are the
That's
same
lovely.
age, you know.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
So am I.
You're the old timers now.
We're the old timers. That's right. My God, time to put us out to pasture and get some young blood in there. That's what we need.
We got it. We got Ian.
Okay,
Goodwin.
well, yeah, thank you, Ian. Thank you, Casey, and everybody for coming. And we'll catch you on the flip side.